Good morning, Malcolm. Welcome aboard.
Right, thank you. Good morning.
Good
You
to
said
see you.
5 minutes on the phone.
Yeah. I was running a little behind schedule, or a lot behind schedule, and I forgot to send out the reminder last night. So I sent that out this morning, but by the time I sent it out, I wrote 5 minutes and it was less than 5 minutes left. So we're going to start in 2 minutes. That way, at least it's not a lie.
At least it's automatic on a Sunday morning.
It should be. It's not yet.
No.
Some things are not automatic quite yet.
No, well, not to worry.
Get this screen share to go. 1 second.
Oh, it's a miserable dark morning.
Oh, back for more.
It's a miserable day out.
We're back on. Look, sometimes things have to be more exciting than usual. I want to share with you today, this morning, we're going to start off with this week on the Jewish calendar, just because on the Hasidic calendar, this has got to be one of the most exciting weeks. I'm not really sure exactly how we're supposed to reconcile the news, Lawrence, that you just shared with this week, but I'm sure I'll leave it to Rabbi Chazan. He'll figure something out. But this week is on the Hasidic calendar, Rosh Hashanah LeChasidus. It's like way up there. This is like the most Hasidic week you can get. So let's talk for a few minutes about what this week's about on the Jewish calendar. Then let's talk about what's going on in the Parshah. And then, of course, from there, we'll go into a lesson from the Parshah, which will be very much connected to the calendar week as well. So it's not just going to be Parshah, it'll be connected to the Hasidic ideas as well. Because, of course, this is a share that includes a lot of Hasidus. Tonight and tomorrow is the 14th day of the month of Kislev, which happens to be the day that the Rebbe, our Rebbe, the last Rebbe, got involved in becoming a Rebbe. How so? He wasn't the son of the Rebbe. He was the great-great-great-grandson, 4 generations from one of the previous Rebbes. So he's in the family, but he married in to the previous Rebbe's family by marrying his daughter. Famously, his father-in-law was the previous Rebbe. But he would say that the day he got married was the day that literally locked him in. So he would mention his wedding day, mainly in the later years, and he would celebrate the wedding day in a sense, not so much as a personal joy, but as a responsibility. As in the day that he married into the family, part of that was stepping up to the plate and being there for the whole community when he was turned to be the Rebbe. So in our mind as recipients for some of the most amazing gifts that he shared with us throughout his lifetime, the anniversary, his wedding anniversary, which is tonight and tomorrow, is also a good day to celebrate. Interestingly, he continued to celebrate his wedding anniversary even after his wife's passing. Very interesting. And more so, he made a big deal out of his wife personally after she passed. Because while she was still alive, almost nobody knew her. She was very, very hatzni leches. How do you say that in English? Modest. She literally wouldn't come to shul because she didn't want people to give her honor.
She's a private person.
Oh, someone who speaks English. Thank you. That's a great line. She was a very private person. I think she was a private person. I'm trying to also emphasize the fact that she had a lot to share if whoever met her, but nonetheless, she still chose to be private. Yeah, so it was like double private. Well said. So let's continue talking about the rest of the week, which isn't so recent. It's a little further back. It's instead of 70, 80 years, 90 years, you're talking about almost 300 years. But the founders of Hasidism. So you have the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov famously was a man who broke the rules. Which sort of rules? The rule was that if you were a Torah scholar you deserve to be honored. If you weren't a Torah scholar, you had to sit back and you went into the back rows. And the Baal Shem Tov came to break that stereotype. The Baal Shem Tov said that everybody can serve Hashem with what they have. If you have a great head, or you were given a gift of education, you got to serve Hashem with that. The person who doesn't have that can equally serve Hashem with whatever they can do. If a person is unable to learn, either because of circumstances or because of their mental ability, this is what they have to do. They have to serve Hashem with whatever you can. And it was a very big difference. It's hard for us to imagine how different it was, but it was a very big difference. And there was opposition to it from a lot of Torah scholars didn't appreciate the fact that others were given equal footing, often felt it was considered disrespectful to Torah study. How could you say that those who don't learn Torah are on equal footing for those who do learn Torah? And it was a big deal. But his student, his replacement, so to speak, the one who filled him in for him was the Maggid of Mezrich, Reb Dov Ber. And Reb Dov Ber brought the whole idea to a whole new level, in which he not only taught that everybody can serve Hashem with whatever they have, he explained it in extreme depth. Yeah, good point. Thank you. I'm just going to do the mute thing. If anyone has anything to say, you can unmute yourself at any minute. Thanks for bringing that up. The idea is that after the Maggid of Mezrich's life, where he took the teachings of Chassidus and made them into almost an academic subject. It wasn't intended to be academia, but it was understandable. It was explorable. You could learn it. You could study it. It wasn't just short bursts of information. But he expounded and it turned it into a philosophy almost. And there was major opposition to that as well. But as the Maggid of Mezrich, who didn't live for very long, as his leadership lasted maybe 11, maybe 15 years. I'm trying to remember. It wasn't very, how many? 15. 11 years. Oh, Chaya tells me it's 11 years. Very good. So 11 years. 11 years was as long as the Maggid was leader. But when he passed away, instead of appointing another leader, he said to each one of his major disciples, it's time to broaden the spectrum. Each one of you has to go up and set up a new dynasty, become a leader on their own. And he then allocated to them different areas on the map and said, you guys move out and be able to spread the message further afield. And that's when famously Chabad moved to Lithuania or to that area of the world. They became the Litvaks, where the Chabad movement was the Alter Rebbe of Shnei Zalman was allocated to go move over to take over that section of Russia, former Russia. At that point, when he was in his deathbed, when Dov Ber was passing away, he had a personal conversation with each one of his students. And when he came to the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, he said to him, this day, which was the 19th day of Kislev, coming up this week on Thursday, he said that this day will be our Hilula. Yeah, it's an Aramaic word, Hilula. It's a very mystical word. Hilula usually means a wedding, but it means a celebration. So he says to his student, this day will be our day of celebration. And it was the day that his teacher, his master, passed away, Reb Dov Ber. 26 years later, it was the same exact day when Reb Shnei Zalman of Liadi, the Balatanya, the founder of Chabad, who had been incarcerated and put into prison under all sorts of allegations, was finally let free. He was freed from his jail, and it happened to be exactly that day, the anniversary of the passing of his teacher, the Maggid of Mezrich. Amazingly, he was just one of the scholars, one of the Hasidic masters of his time, with many contemporaries. Yet today, across the Hasidic different groups, Yat Kislev, the 19th day of Kislev, even here in Manchester, is celebrated as a Hasidic celebration. For those of us who get excited, the Mishnah in Maseches Rosh Hashanah talks about the new year. The whole Masechta talks about the Masechta Rosh Hashanah, and it opens up by saying there are 4 Rosh Hashanahs. One Rosh Hashanah for people. One Rosh Hashanah for the trees that we know about. One Rosh Hashanah for the Meiser. And when it comes to Yutes Kislev, we say there's a 5th Rosh Hashanah these days. And it's the Rosh Hashanah for Chasidus. The new year, the new beginning for Chasidus. And of course, Hasidic texts are full of explaining why you use the word Rosh, head, rather than Techila, beginning. But let's just say that in Yutes Kislev, the 90th day Kislev coming this week, it's the beginning of tremendous investment, tremendous energy that Hasidus gives to the world. So this week is loaded. It's very, very powerful. It's so powerful that it's made for us, for people. That's one of the key things of Hasidus. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about one of the messages that Hasidus brought to the table, brought to Judaism in the 300 years that it's been around. And then hopefully on Tuesday evening, Be'ez Hashem this week, at 8 o'clock, we're going to have a Farbrengen for Yutes Kislev. It's not on Yutes Kislev, but it's around Yutes Kislev. And it's together with this very special birthday for one of our good friends, Mr. Schultz, Alan, who's turning the young age of something. And we're celebrating. And that's why we're going to have a celebratory Farbrengen. You're all welcome to join. Blined, I'll be sending out the WhatsApps and hopefully delivering some Farbrengen packages for those of us here in the UK, Yona. And of course, everyone is welcome to join along. One more thing that's going on the Jewish calendar, which is very, very important, is that Hanukkah is next week. Say that again. Hanukkah is next week. It's true. Next week is Hanukkah. Get ready. So why is that special for now? It's next week. Oh, there are a lot of people who don't realize that Hanukkah, we're in November still, right? Hanukkah is next week and we're in November. What's going on? This is what's going on. And because of lockdown and lifting lockdown, but still serious COVID safety, we've got to make sure no one misses out. So if you know anybody who didn't buy candles or maybe didn't buy candles, reach out. A lot of people have menorahs, but they don't necessarily have candles. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Holy Law Shul is giving out candles. Apparently, I spoke to Dov, that's what he says. But that sort of idea where shuls and members and friends are reaching out to each other and just saying, Happy Hanukkah, don't forget to do it. Don't just know about it. Don't just be aware of it. Do it. Light the candles every night because it's brilliant. It's so purposeful. It's just a candle. It goes a very long way. You're not getting together with your kids and you're going to be on your own. So what? Light the candles. Share the light. So now, it's a week before. Next week is Hanukkah. It's important for us not to forget. There's plenty of menorah kits that we can share if anyone needs or you know somebody who needs. That's what's going on in the Jewish calendar this week. We have a Hasidic Yom Tov, and we're getting ready for Hanukkah. We're making sure nobody misses out. And now we're ready for Parshah. All right, it's already 1:45. I'm looking at the clock. I'm going to try and do a quick summary of the Parshah. So that way we can have one idea and maybe some time for a bit of a conversation. Let's talk about this week's Parshah. Parshah is Vayishlach. Hey, Mushka, remember bring me a bottle and a cup, please. I think I'm talking too loud. Thank you. Okay, so we have here Parshas Vayishlach, and the word Vayishlach means, and he sent. When it comes to Chabad, Vayishlach automatically brings to mind Shluchim. Shluchim means to be sent. Every Chabad center around the world started off as a regular Hasidic yeshiva couple who were studying yeshiva, expecting to whatever, and all of a sudden, before you know it, Vayishlach, they're sent away to who knows where. So I got it easy. I got sent off to a fantastic community here in Manchester, and I'm loving it. But some of my friends and colleagues, even classmates, are in more interesting places. Apparently, the Holy Law Shul is going to be seeing a few of them. Jamaica's coming up. He's a classmate of mine. He learned here in Manchester. Iceland, also, Avi, he learned here in Manchester. He's a cousin. But there's some interesting places coming up. What's the idea of being sent? Well, you have one particular idea, or in the Parshah case, it was Yaakov Avinu, our forefather Yaakov, and he needed to convey some sort of message far away. So he needed an agent to go on his behalf. What was the story of our Parshah? The story of our Parshah is that you had Yaakov coming home from 22 years in hiding. He wasn't in hiding, but he was keeping a low key so that his angry brother Esau shouldn't be able to hurt him or shouldn't feel like he needs to hurt him. But now he's coming home. And when he comes home, he needs to create an environment, an atmosphere where Esau is not going to be angry and Chas v'shalom try to hurt him. So what he's going to do is he's sending messengers to Esau and he's trying to create a bridge, to bridge that gap once again between him and his twin brother. Now, as the story goes, the messengers come first, and they first come with a message of peace, and they come back to Yaakov and say, you forget it. You are sending a message of peace. Your brother's marching towards you with 400 men, and they're all ready for battle. So he's marching for war. And Yaakov realizes it's not going to be as simple as just sending a messenger. He changes tactic, and he does a three-pronged approach. Number one, he davens to Hashem. Number two, he prepares for battle. Practical. Got to be realistic. However much you pray, you got to work the world. He prepares for battle and he makes a battle plan. How he's going to set himself up, to camps, ambush, the whole business. And then the third thing, and that's the most important thing, he moves towards Esau. He's going to flood him. Or as they say in English, kill him with love. How so? He starts sending gifts to his brother. Not little gifts. He sends one gift and then he staggers it so that his brother sees one gift. Wow, that's so beautiful. And then a little while later, there's another gift and another gift and another gift. And the whole time, the wow factor is rubbing in, and it works. Because by the time Yaakov meets up with Esau, he follows behind the gifts. Instead of him drawing his sword and saying, hey, I'm going to fight you, he rushes towards him and they fall on each other's shoulders and they hug and they kiss and they're so warm together and everything, all the anger dissipates. And Baruch Hashem, they're chatting and they're talking. And Esau famously says to Yaakov, why don't you come back with me to my town? I'll look after you. You'll come and live with me in Seir. And Yaakov says, thank you so much, but no thank you. And he says basically a mix between I'd rather be a friend from afar, and he doesn't necessarily want his children to grow up with all the influences that Esau would bring. And he says, I'll make my own way there eventually. And as Rashi points out, eventually is a reference to the end of time, when Mashiach will come, and Jacob will inherit the land of Esau, land of Seir. And at that point, Yaakov will come to Seir. But up until then, I'm going to take up and live in the land of Israel, which at that point was called Canaan. And that's what he does. He settles just on the outskirts of Shechem. And his troubles are not over yet. After having the whole story with his brother and having the story of dealing with Uncle Lavan for 22 years, he now has the story of Shechem. What's the story of Shechem? He's living on the outskirts of town. He pays top dollar for his plot of land. And then the prince of Shechem fancies his daughter Dinah and abducts her and defiles her. And then he all of a sudden comes to Yaakov and says, oh, I want to marry your daughter. What would it take? And Yaakov is furious. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? And before anything happens, the boys show up. Yaakov has 11 boys at this point. And the 11 boys, each one of them is like a powerhouse. Shimon and Levi in particular, they're young lads, just turned 13, 12 and 13. And as Shechem comes to talk about them, they take up the conversation and say to the father, let's handle this. We'll handle this well. Oh boy, we're going to handle this. And basically, they trick Shechem to say to them, we'll let our families marry into each other if you circumcise. You got to do what we do. And of course, Shechem, being the speaker, the smooth talker that he was, goes back and convinces his entire tribe to circumcise. And that's when Shimon and Levi turn around the tables and they storm in to the whole village of Shechem and they wipe out all the men who are obviously very weak from their surgery. And Yaakov is furious. Yaakov says to the boys, what have you done? How dangerous. You've opened this up. Everybody around us is going to come and turn around to attack us. So they say to the father, what should we do? Let our sister be defiled like that and not respond at all? That could be much worse. And besides, it's one of the 7 Noahide laws, and therefore they're punishable by death for breaking the law. And not only that, all those bystanders who allowed that to happen and did nothing to him are guilty of the same. Yaakov says, hold on 1 second. You might be right, but how do you take the law into your own hands? And then he says to them, taking away the booty from Shechem? No way. You're not touching a single penny that belonged to them. You'll leave it all right there. And he picked himself up with his family, and together with Dinah, which they're taking back, they start traveling again. He'd only been there for 1.5 years, and he starts traveling again. As he's traveling, that's when his wife, Rachel, gives birth to the 12th of the 12 tribes, Binyamin, and she passes away, unfortunately, in childbirth, but not before she finds out that, yes, indeed, she's been blessed with a second son, making her at least on par with the other 2 of the other wives. And she brings the total number of 12 tribes to 12, and she calls him Benoni, Yaakov calls it Binyamin, and she's buried en route, on the roadside just outside Vayishlach, and that's where she's buried until today. And the Parshah continues that Yaakov makes his way over to Hebron, where his father Yitzchak lived. His mother had already passed away, and that's where he meets up with his father after all those years. And his father lives until a ripe old age of 180, which is when Yitzchak passes away. And we read about Esav, preparing Yitzchak, about Esav and his family, and the whole family tree of how it worked, and all the places that Esav conquered and settled in, and his family tree. That's Parshah Vayishlach. It's an important link in understanding how the story of from Avraham Avinu until Moshe Rabbeinu, where Avraham is founding the Yiddishkeit as we know it today, but it doesn't complete until Moshe Rabbeinu leads the Jews in front of Har Sinai. All that journey, important links were when Yaakov meets Esav, when Yaakov has the 12 tribes, when Yaakov comes back to Eretz Yisrael, and all these steps are important in this week's Parshah. So there's a lot of different elements in the Parshah. We're going to pick on the very opening of the Parshah and focus on that. And in particular, we're looking for, this week, it's going to be Uber Chasidus. We're going to be learning a Hasidic approach to life. And the question we're going to ask ourselves as an opener for this class is, what did Hasidus gift the world? What is the message that Hasidus is trying to share with us? A lot of people like to use the word Kabbalah. Kabbalah isn't necessarily practical. Kabbalah is spiritual. It's abstract. Hasidus is not necessarily Kabbalah, but it incorporates a lot of Kabbalah also, but it's Kabbalah applied. It's how Kabbalah changes our life. So if there's one area that Hasidus tries to impart, to share with us, is to tell us that Judaism, Yiddishkeit, Hashem, Torah, Neshama is real. Is real. That as real as money is, as real as real estate is, as real as politics are, or not real, that's a bad example, but as real as everything else is, Yiddishkeit is even more real than that. It's for real. And therefore, there's nothing to be embarrassed of. We should never shy away from it, but also we should realize that everything in our life that has the slightest trace of realness to it, that is anything connected to reality, must have a light, a brightness of Yiddishkeit in it, because otherwise it's missing reality. There's nothing that exists for real that doesn't have tremendous amount of Torah, of neshama in it, purpose. So let's do L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'hakol niyeh b'dvaro. That is water, in case you're getting worried. 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, let's do a little bit of the Parshah, and let's get going. If anyone has any questions or observations, comments to make, please unmute yourself. Now's a good time. Yeah, here we go. They tell your soul is set on fire. Sick holiday you never knew that will change your life. Okay, let's do the first bit. Famous pictures. The picture we have here is a drawing of what it would have looked like in the Baal Shem Tov's times. The idea in the picture is to emphasize that in the Baal Shem Tov's times, the average person who listened in to the Baal Shem Tov in the marketplaces were the people who didn't make it to the shul. These were people who were commoners. And the commoners, unfortunately, had no one to teach them. And the Baal Shem Tov would come, and instead of giving them a drasha, he would share stories. Everyone loves a story. Stories are easy to listen to. And a story carries meaning, carries a message. So here's a story of the Baal Shem Tov I just shared with you. And just listening to the fact that the Baal Shem Tov is talking to people who are not learned, that's a story that can tell us loads. It's loaded. It helps us realize that everybody has a connection to Hashem. Everybody's able to work with Hashem. And this is number one. But also, on this week, we're celebrating his spiritual grandchild. This is a picture of the Alter Rebbe. Interestingly, if I'm not mistaken, this picture is available to us because of the Alter Rebbe's incarceration. And the Alter Rebbe, this drawing, which obviously wasn't a photograph, what we call a photograph, it's a painting, but it's a very special painting because it was taken under the circumstances of where the Alter Rebbe had to pose for this painting, and in that merit we have it until today. So these are the celebrations we're talking about this week, and we're asking, what did these individuals, what did these revolutionists bring to us and give to us? How does it help us in our life? Good, so let's start off with the Parshah, and we'll start off with a quote from the very first pasuk that reads, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim Lefanav El Esav Achiv Artu Seir Sidei Edom. Jacob sent angels ahead of him to his brother Esau to the land of Seir, the field of Edom. Now, the translation here reads, Jacob sent angels. Jacob sent angels to Esau. It almost sounds like Yaakov has a spare stash of angels and he sends them off to do whatever he wants, which is great. But actually, the word malachim in this pasuk doesn't necessarily mean angels. There's another verse, which you don't have here on the screen, but there was a fellow called Balak. Balak was a king of Moab. He wasn't a good guy, he was a bad guy. And he sent messengers to bring the non-Jewish sorcerer who was going to come and curse the Jews. He was called Balaam. And he sent messengers to Balaam. And those messengers are called Malachim, angels. So angels don't necessarily have to mean angels as in the spiritual beings who are from the celestial realities. They don't have a form like we know it. It could just mean agents. But in this particular pasuk, we have that these angels who are sent to share a message with Esau, Rashi comes right away and tells us, don't get any ideas that these are just regular messengers. Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim, says Rashi, the word Malachim in this context is to be taken literally, angels. In the Hebrew, Malachim Mamash, literally angels. Why is Rashi telling us this? That we shouldn't think that Yaakov wasn't capable of hiring a couple of angels. No problem. You got to figure it out. And he sent literally angels to Esau. Now, did Esau notice that these messengers were angels? Not necessarily. But the point is that he sent angels because they were on a very spiritual mission. What sort of spiritual mission would they be on? So as the verse says, he was trying to make a peace deal. He was trying to move Esau from angry Esau to peaceful Esau. From Esau who does not want to accept what Yaakov stands for, to an Esau that would be willing to work with the Yaakov and what he stands for. They were on a mission to move Esau closer to what Yaakov stood for. And that's a big mission, not just delivery boys, postmen that are going to drop off a letter and deliver a package. These are messengers who are on a mission. And for that, Yaakov chooses to use angels. Angels that would be capable of being able to have the best chance at changing Esau. It happens to be that the angels came back and said, we're going to have to do it a little bit more complicated. But Yaakov's first move, which had the best chance of success, was to use malachim mamash, literally angels. Interesting. Okay, get ready. Somehow, we're going to learn this story, Yaakov Esav, good guy, sending messengers to the other side to try and change him, is the story of me and you. This is the story of our life. We are the good guy, but inside of me, there's an Esav guy. There's a side of me that needs to be moved, has to be changed over, has to be guided, directed to be able to come over to the good side. And this week's Parshah is telling us how to do it. What is the most effective way to approach it? And number one is that we're learning that something about the messenger can't just be another messenger. It has to be a messenger which is literally like an angel, a malach. That's one point. We're going to get another point and then we'll discuss it. Another point is from the Maggid of Mezrich. The Maggid of Mezrich, Reb Doibe, who was the teacher of the Alter Rebbe and the student of the Baal Shem Tov, who, as we said, his Yortzeit is coming up this week. Reb Doibe Mezrich, in his Sefer HaSichos, is quoted about the last Shabbos in his life. Now, like this week, Yutas Kislev always comes out around this week's Parshah. In that particular year, 1772, it was just after the Shabbos of Parshas Vayishlach. So the last Shabbos that Reb Doiber lived in this world, in his lifetime, was the Parshah of Vayishlach. So in that year, here's the quote: the Shabbos of Parshas Vayishlach, 1772, 5533, was the Maggid of Mezrich's last Shabbos in this world. Lying in bed before all the members of the Holy Society, he said, quoting the Rashi we just read, Rashi states that the Malachim Jacob sent were Malachim and Mamash, literally angels. Says the Maggid, actually the word Mamash, we use it to mean literally. This means Jacob sent the Mamash bodies of the angels. Mamashus can also mean tangible. When you have something that it actually is, and you can touch it, it literally is, it's verily, it really is tangible, then you can use the mamashi. Oh, Asher, you're on board just in time. Mamashi means it's tangible. And I think in modern Hebrew. So when the Rashi says that the angels were mamash, they were literally angels, says the Maggid, a Hasidic teaching of that same quote would tell us that these angels were not just literally angels and not regular messengers, like in the Bilam story. Instead, they were literally angels, but also this means that Jacob sent only the body, the tangible part of the angel. But the spirit of the angels, Jacob didn't send. Yaakov retained them. The angel, the spirituality of the angels remained with Yaakov. Okay, this is the Hasidic teaching in the academic world. But as we said, Hasidus is not academia. All the academia of Hasidus is about applied, making it real. This was the last Shabbos in the Maggid's lifetime. His students took this lesson as a last will and testament. A last will and testament. They took this lesson as the Maggid teaching with which we can navigate life in this world as a growing, practicing Jew. Something about this message is very important. When Yaakov is going to try and influence Esav, when the good guy is trying to make impact and move, help the bad guy grow closer to appreciate the good things, what is he going to do? He's going to send messengers that are angels, but he's going to send the mamash, the tangible element of the angels, but not the spirituality. This is until where the mysticism goes. Now let's start applying all this. Let's try and make it relevant to our life. If anyone has any questions or comments or observations, please, by all means, speak up. But I'm going to put a question on the board in the meantime. The question on the board reads, Yaakov is sending angels Why is he sending angels? To neutralize Esav by transforming him to spirituality. Is that correct? So if that's what he's looking to do, here's the question. He's trying to send angels literally because he wants to have the greatest impact. Why would you send only the body of the angel and not the spirit of the angel and expect to have best impact? Would it not make more sense to send the spirit of the angels, what the angels stood for as well? Why is the Maggid trying to emphasize and teach us that lesson for life, that when we want to engage, transform, work with materialism, distraction, other sides of the coin which are not less spiritual, we should balance our interaction this way? And here is where, in this particular, there's obviously a quote from the Rebbe Sicha, but we're going to learn it in a way of how we can make Chassidus not just ideas, very deep ideas. And as you can imagine, the Kabbalists love this kind of talk. Anyone who's into Kabbalah would appreciate how you learn about angels and what it means that angels have a body and what it means that angels have a spirit. Did you ever know that angels have a body? You ever seen a body of angel? They don't have a body like we have. But let's just do a bit of Kabbalah. Let's twinkle a little bit. 4 elements that Kabbalah talks about on all of creation. Eish, Mayim, Ruach, Afar. Eish is fire, Mayim is water, Ruach is air, wind, and Afar is earth. And the balance, the ratio of those 4 ingredients vary from creation to creation. So some things are more heavy and they are more earth elements. Some things are lighter and they're more wind or fire. They carry themselves. Life is ruach. If you have things that are heavy, they are fall to the ground, or emotions that are heavy are connected to afar. Angels don't carry the afar, the earth, and the water, the mayim elements. So their body consists of spiritual body. It's less spiritual than the spirit of the spiritual. Okay? That's how Kabbalah describes it.
Yeah, but how did they turn? How can you then, when Abraham saw the angels,
Yes?
they actually look like people then. So how does that?
Very good. They didn't have a body, so how was he able to see them?
Exactly.
Very good question. The answer is, in some houses, when they have children at home, they have the Purim box or the dress-up box, where you go and get yourself dressed up. Oh, Chemosh is nodding your head. Very good. You have the dress-up box. You have a place where you get the fancy dress. And whenever you want to dress up like a policeman, you take out the policeman hat. Or you want to dress up like a fireman or like a nurse or like whatever you get dressed up as, you take that out. So the angels have a fancy dress box, a Purim costume box. And when they had to go to visit Avram, they got dressed up as humans. But that's not who they were. They were dressed up as. When an Eliyahu Hanavi comes to a bris, he comes as he is. And those people who have the right set of spiritual lenses can actually see Eliyahu Hanavi at a bris. But for the most of us, we don't see him. But when Eliyahu Hanavi has to come and speak to someone, then he goes to the Purim box, goes to the fancy dress box and gets dressed up. That's the answer to the question. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we know that exactly. Eliyahu Navi, that's what he does all the time.
Very good. He loves getting dressed up. Here we have the question though. If the reason Yaakov sent angels and not humans to Esau is because the goal was to transform Esau spiritually, to this end he sent angels who are best suited for such a job, here comes the question, but why did he only send the angels' bodies? Surely a transformation of Esau would be accomplished primarily by the angel's inner spiritual quality. Here is going to be the answer. Before we do the answer, little introduction, and that is going to be the story of the crown prince Mashal. What's the story? The Alter Rebbe, Shnei Zalman of Yedi, was in prison. And when he was in prison, he was visited by his teacher, the Maggid, who had already passed away 26 years earlier. And alongside with the Maggid, came with him also the Baal Shem Tov to visit him in prison. And he had a conversation with them, which he later recounted. And the conversation he had with them went as follows. Let's put it on the screen. Here we go. The Alter Rebbe asked them, why do I deserve this? And what do they want from me? This is what he asked his teacher. He's sitting in Tsarist prison. It's not a great place to be. It's obviously not a very safe place to be either. And he says to his teachers, his masters, what did I do wrong? Why am I here? The Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid answered the Alter Rebbe. Now, if we were to suggest this, then it would be a nice suggestion. But if the Baal Shem Tov is telling this to his student, to the Alter Rebbe, it's reliable information. And what he's telling them is that heavy accusations against your publicly disseminating the teachings of Chassidus has been renewed. There's an accusation in heaven against the Alter Rebbe and his way of teaching. He is making the why, the reasons of mitzvahs, of Yiddishkeit, the understandings that up until this point are top secret, known only to select few, and he's disseminating it publicly. And therefore the accusations are again being accused against him, and that is why he is finding himself in trouble. So the Alter Rebbe asked his teacher, if I make it out of here, should I stop teaching Chassidus? And his teachers responded, no. Because you have started, do not stop. To the contrary, when you go out of here, you shall increase. Okay, I feel like I'm teaching Chassidus, all about Chassidus. But let me tell you, this is important. Why do I think this is important? Because the Baal Shem Tov, who we know was a great lover of the Jewish people and gave so much, is telling his student, or the student of his student, don't slow down. Even when it looks like there are obstacles and it's costing you your own goodness, don't stop. Continue to do this because it's so important. Not only that, he says to him, when you get out, you shall increase. And as the Alter Rebbe understood it, this was a promise that he would get out, and therefore he had confidence that it would be okay. But also, if the reason why he got in there in the first place is because in heaven they weren't happy with what he was doing, then if he gets out, that would be a sign that in heaven they are already come to terms with it and they are now happy with him to continue. In other words, setting him free would be the hechsher, the recognition, the acknowledgement that his way and his teachings are now good. So now the question becomes, what was so bad about what he was doing? And what was the change in heaven's approach? What was wrong with the Alter Rebbe's teachings of Chassidus? What is Chassidus that was so problematic? And then, if Chassidus is about the soul, why not everyone? Why the opposition? Let's just put that question in a moment. What is the teaching in Chassidus? And the Alter Rebbe gives us the answer. He says to us that if you want to know why it's important to do Hashem's mitzvahs, then you learn Chassidus. If you want to know what is the engine of Yiddishkeit, that is Chassidus. And that isn't something that you'll find in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, or in the Gemara. The Gemara tells us what to do, how to do, but not why to do. Let me ask you, do you think it's important to know why we do what we do, or it's more important to just know what to do so that we do it right? What would you say? Is it important to know why of Yiddishkeit?
It's good to have a why.
It's good to, but it's not necessary.
Why?
Oh, but it's important to know why.
It is important to know why.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. I agree. I'm a Hasidic Jew.
For me also.
But you also.
It's very academic to know why.
Now you're getting into dangerous water. Yeah, but it's not wrong. It's very academic. I'm going to borrow that in a moment. But first, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a minute. There was opposition. A lot of people opposed the Hasidic teachings and said, hold on, the why of Yiddishkeit we haven't had for generations. It's always been top secret. It was, Kabbalah was always side. It was secret. People didn't even know it existed, let alone study it. And there's a good reason for that, because if a person knows the whys of what they're doing, they now open up themselves to start imagining that they're in a position to decide what's yes, good, and not good. Even if they only understand a little bit, it's very easy to think that with a little bit I know enough to be able to decide what's good and not good. You find that very often when people Google medical procedures. So I'll decide myself right now whether the doctor knows what they're talking about or not, or the pharmacist is giving me the right medicine. Because I checked Google. I checked and I saw in 15 different sites where each Meshuggah decided to write whatever they wanted. And now I know. It's based on a true story. It's not that there's no truth to the research that they did. The only thing is that they only know a very little bit. So there's a very good part to it, that when I'm taking a medication or my doctor's giving me a procedure, I can understand why that procedure makes sense. But the risk about that is that I convince myself that I'm now the professor. I now have an opinion. I see Lawrence is smiling. I'm getting worried.
You have no idea how much bother that has caused. The day we started putting information leaflets with side effects in medication, it was a bad choice. People read it and assumed they had every side effect.
Well, there you go. There you go. But there is a tremendous benefit to it. And there's a reason why they decided to go ahead with it. And it ties very much into the idea of the concept of Chassidus. Actually, there's two different ways. I'm not going to do this on the screen just because I'm running against the clock as always. The idea is there's two main reasons why it's important for us to get the why of our Yiddishkeit. One reason is because we are no longer as elevated as we were in the past. Simple example. In the 1920s, a kid grew up knowing you got to go to work. There was no, oh, you'll make it big, I'll convince you. This is what you got to do. This is what your mother did. This is what your father did. This is what your grandparents did. This is what you have to do. You need a why. You don't have to explain things. If someone looked at you funny at work or in their friends and you were offended, you get on with it. Oh, you're offended? Okay, but get on with life. Today, if you want your kid to go to work or to get a job, you have to explain it to them. You have to make sure it makes sense to them, and then they'll decide, and then they'll agree. If someone says something nasty to them, they need a whole bunch of TLC, and you got to talk them through it, and there's feelings. It's great, but it's not because we're stronger. It's not because we're more on fire. It's because at the end of the day, today, we're weaker. We're no longer made of the stuff. We're not as tough. And therefore, we need to have more explaining, more talking and communicating, and that's the reality. And when it comes to Yiddishkeit, Yiddishkeit's been through a beating over and over again. In the times of Tashbet of the Baal Shem Tov, there was unbelievable pogroms that Rahman al was going on. But even in recent history, with the First World War changed Europe, and then the Second World War, Rahman al what it did to Yiddishkeit, and throughout the different tzaros that Yiddishkeit has had, it's very important now more than ever that we should be able to feel comfortable with the Yiddishkeit we have. And there's an edge. There's an edge when a person isn't just learning what to do, but a person is passionate about it. And to be passionate about something, as Yonah says, you've got to have the academics behind it, or at least the feelings behind it, that a person should feel like they can connect personally to it and then do it. So in addition to knowing what to do, there's a fire burning behind that with the why we do it, or how this is going to be so special. And that Hasidus comes to give us. There's another entire different element, which is the other way around. Not only because we're downgraded or no longer as tough as we were in the past, but also the teachings, the understandings of why it makes sense. That putting a mezuzah on your door makes your home more secure. Or wrapping tefillin around your arm brings peace and brings blessings to you and your family. And helps a person focus. And understanding those links and those connections, which are the kind of things that Chassidus teaches us, understanding the relationship between Hashem, creator, and creation, how it's a two-way street, how we're growing, how we're becoming closer to Hashem, all of that is a taste of what's really coming. A taste of when the world openly understands creator and creation. We call that redemption, Mashiach, Geula. And as we get closer and closer to redemption, we need a taste of it already now. Like they say, before Shabbos, a person should taste the food of Shabbos. And put yourself into that spirit. Chassidus is a taste of reality for real. So there's two elements. On the one hand, it's helping us get through that last, final, most difficult stretch of the darkness. So it's helping us cope. But more importantly, it's also giving us the window onto what's really coming our way so we could start living today how powerfully it's going to be when Mashiach comes. That's the kind of idea. So Chassidus has come as a tool to empower us to bridge the two worlds we live in. We live on one hand a very real world when we talk to people who are cutthroat, money-oriented, just driving for the next dollar, the next pound, or fame, or power, or whatever else drives modern society. And it's a very different lingo, a very different conversation to when we come to shul, when we try and elevate our spiritual side and develop ourselves into becoming a little bit more refined and a spiritual being. And these two worlds are so far apart. The bridge that will not only make sure that the two worlds don't oppose, but will bring the two things so strongly together that every step of the way there's such harmony, there's no contradiction at all. It's one vision. That's what redemption is going to be. That's what Geula is, that our life is streamlined. We find Hashem in every part of reality. And Chassidus is here to teach us how to bridge that gap. Yaakov is sending a message to Esav, not because he wants to deliver information, but because he wants to help Esav transform. Yaakov, our soul, our neshama, is talking to our, call it your body, call it our mind, call it our academia, our reality, whatever we want to call it. And Yaakov inside of me is sending a message to the Esav, external, surface level, conscious level of me. And the idea is, come together. Let's work this and make it the way it should really be. Let's set ourselves on fire. Let's do this on a whole new level. And Esav resists because it's exciting. The sparkling lights, the flashing lights of the streets, city night is very, very enticing. The world Hashem designed is designed to do what it does, and it does it very well. It's very distracting. That's what Hashem designed the world to do. But he also designed us to be able to have the tools to bridge that gap, to live in and engage with this very world. And like we said, Rebbetzin Spalter Alei Shalom worked the stock market as a Hasidic Rebbetzin. This is what it means, that we can be engaged in, and there's nothing to be embarrassed of. Not on this side, not on that side. Because we find clarity in every move. Says the Maggid of Mezrich, when you send a messenger to Esav saying, let's be good, don't just be the Jewish Red Cross where it's nice to be nice. No, it's not about nice to be nice. It's much deeper than that. It's much more inclusive than that. It's not just that we want to do at least something for Hashem. Even when I'm at work, I'm going to find a way to bring Hashem into it. I'll put a tzedakah box in my office. Of course you should do that. But it's much more than that. It's not about nice to be nice. Everything about my life is a mission to bring Hashem into this world. That's what I live for. That's very different. When a person finds Hashem in everything, I'm not sending a messenger. I'm sending the very angel itself. The angel itself, the Hashem within me, is what goes across. Says the Maggid, That's very true. And Rashi tells you that from the beginning. If you want to engage the world, don't just donate Hashem to the world. Be switched on. Remind yourself that what's really going on is not that I'm bridging two forces. I am one force that doesn't need to change anywhere. So there's not that there's two realities, both have equal footing, and we need to make a peace deal between them. No, I am for real a man on a mission. Let's put it in simple English. You're in the train station. You're in the airport, please God, very soon, yeah, when COVID gets finished. And we all can go and fly wherever we have to go to safely. And you're walking through the airport and you're not embarrassed, certainly not to wear your yarmulke. But you kosher food. Nothing is embarrassing. Why would it be? What, the airline is a contradiction, or the people who are sitting next to you are a contradiction to your consciousness? Of course not. This is what you're here for. Why did Hashem design that when we travel, we meet other people? It's an opportunity to share that light. This is what it was set up for, not to be able to survive the challenge of people who don't know, and I'm not going to be embarrassed, or I'll still keep kosher, but I'll make sure nobody. No, this is what we're here for. We're here to be able to carry the brightness and beauty of what Hashem has gifted us with everywhere, with a beautiful smile, with a warmth. That's what we're here. This is what we're born to do. But that, says the Maggid, is not enough. It's not enough just to remind ourselves that this is what we're here to do. We've got to make sure that when we're out there, we don't lose sight. I'm going to end up with one story, because as we said, the Baal Shem Tov loved stories. And this story, I might have mentioned it before, kind of drives home this message. One of the students of the 5th Lubavitcher, I think, was a businessman. As we said, the Hasidic Jews often engage the real world and live there like a Hasidic Jew. This particular guy had a job which brought him to the big city a lot. He lived in the shtetl in Lubavitch, and he would travel to the big city. Often he would be out in the big city the whole week, and he would only come home for Shabbos. But when he was in the big city, he couldn't dress the way he dressed in the shtetl. He wore a bowler hat and a suit and a bow tie, whatever else he wore. But when he would come home for Shabbos, he would get changed to his Shabbos clothing and come to shul like everyone else. And this went on for years. During the week, he wore modern clothing. On his Shabbos, he wore his Hasidic garb. Until one day it got to him. He says, what's this double life? I'm masquerading. Purim box. Forget it. I'm going to wear the same clothing even when it's Shabbos. So that Shabbos, instead of coming to shul in his traditional Hasidic long coat and his fur hat, whatever else they wore, he came to shul with his modern clothing. He walked into shul and everybody gasps. Hey, what's going on? As you can imagine. So then, after Shabbos, the Rebbe speaks to him and he says to him, I understood that you always had to masquerade part of your life. You were wearing different hats, but I never dreamt that the hat for during the week is what you connected with for real. And the hat that you wore on Shabbos was your masquerade. I always thought it was the other way around, that on Shabbos it was the real you, and during the week you were masqueraded. This is the end of the story. I think the Chassid understood the message. We can also understand the message. It's important for us to know that when we engage in the world, we are sending an angel, but the spirituality of that angel remains constantly within the neshama. It's so important that when we do everything, you go shopping, you talk business, talk politics, talk whatever it is. It's important for us to remind ourselves that the real me, the spirit, the purpose of what I am should never stop being at home with Yaakov. Of course, we have to engage. That's what we were born to do. That's what the world is taking us. But we should remind ourselves that the spirit of that very angel, it's giving us the best shot interaction, can never leave home. The purpose, spirit means what it lives for, not just the form it takes, but the spirit of the angel is always with Yaakov. And this is a guiding life message, last will and testament of the Maggid. Have we learned something? Have we learned about how we engage reality, but we remind ourselves of the real us is? The challenge is now to do it for real. Certainly don't be embarrassed of anything Yiddish anywhere. People are dying. Oh, desperate, not dying, living, desperately waiting to see you proudly carry your Yiddishkeit and bridge those gaps. And when they see you, they might ask questions, but they're not attacking you. They're interested to know more. Where do you get this goodness from? Where do you carry this clarity, this absolute confidence of knowing that nothing in the world can stand in front of the emes, of the truth, of a Yid who's carrying that vision? The Eibush should be a very good Yom Tov, and I look forward to whoever can make it on Tuesday night for the Farbrengen at 8 o'clock. I'll be sending around the login details, and Hashem should bench us with a good Hanukkah. Don't forget, it's next week. If you know anybody who needs a light, share those lights. L'chaim, any questions? I'm happy to try and answer.
Thanks very much, Levi.
Look after yourself. Thank you for joining.
Good week.
And you.
Bye.
Hanukkah, it's a week on Friday.
Thursday night. So next Thursday.
No, the week after.
Yeah.
The 10th of December.
Yes. Well, that's the week Friday, isn't it? Not next Friday.
Not this coming Friday.
No,
Yeah.
week after.
Yeah, so next week is Hanukkah. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What date?
A Thursday the 10th.
Thursday the
Malcolm, I
10th.
don't want to mix you up.
That's
It's
a week
of Thursday.
Friday.
Not
Week
next
on
Thursday,
Thursday.
the Thursday after.
Correct, but next week.
Yeah.
A week on Thursday is next week. I'm
Correct.
playing with your mind.
According to Levi, we are already in the new week. Yes. The week started today.
Right. Point taken.
Oh, Rabbi, just say the date. It's actually the 10th, isn't it? The 10th of December.
Correct. 10th of December on the Thursday in the evening is when Hanukkah starts.
Correct. Right. We're all got there. All singing from the same tree. Right. Okay. So
Look after yourself, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Pleasure.
Have a wonderful
Bye.
week.
And
Okay, thank you for teaching us.
L'chaim.
Bye.
Right.
Take care.
Bye.
Oh, Jaina, good to see you.
Bye. Bracha. Don't forget.
Oh, Berichas Koinim, my Dabra, the name of Moshe, my Dabra, Aaron, but of them, the Kois of Morris, Bnei Yisrael, the Mother Hem. Yivarech Echad, the name of Shemrecha, Yera, the name of Panam Melech, Mechaneka. So, the name of Panam Melech, we say Mechashalim, Mesama, Shmini al Bnei Yisrael, Vani Avarchim.
Man,
Be a blessed week. Yaina, if you want 8 o'clock on Tuesday, what time is that by you? 10 o'clolock?
10. It's a bit late, but I will try to join you. I
was
have
gonna
a
send
question.
you some Machintoschen, some bit of whiskey.
Yes.
It's a bit far though.
I have a question. I have been woodworking when you said the most important bit. I missed it. So why did he send the physical bodies?
Why did he send the physical? Well, it wasn't physical. It was the body of the angel, not the spirit.
Yes.
They don't have a physical body. The answer is
So my educated guess is that he wanted to go step by step. So you start with some kind of lower, more acceptable level, and then increase the intensity. So before the spiritual, you start with the bodily, with the physical.
so. The Maggid says something different. The Maggid says that in order to make sure that the interaction is the right way round, and the influencer remains the angel, and not the Esav ends up influencing the angel, and becomes influenced. It's important to relieve the spirit with Yaakov. What does that mean? The spirit is the purpose of something, what it lives for. And that, what it lives for, has to constantly be connected to its source. So, of course, the angel actually comes, interacts, engages, we meet people, we talk to them, but we never forget who's the real me. And that's why we use that story. I'm not sure if you heard the story about the guy who would get dressed during the week. So in his mind, he forgot who the real him is. He started thinking that the real him is the guy who goes out on business. And then there's also another real him who comes to Shul on Shabbos. And he forgot that, no, the real me is my neshama. What I'm doing is sending messages, is the body of what I'm doing. But the soul of what I'm doing always has to remain that way. And if a person starts taking the soul away from its source, it is no longer plugged in, then you're running a big risk. First of all, by becoming influenced, and then the Rebbe makes it much more important, which we didn't emphasize here. Nobody's going to be impressed. You're not going to be able to affect Esav. When a person just comes, oh, I've got a good idea. I mean, you have a different idea. Unless it's 100% fully switched on, if it's not live, it's not alive, it's not fully connected, then you say, oh, very nice. I'll either take it or leave it. But when you see somebody who's so focused, so switched on, so passionate about what they're saying, you take them differently. You take them seriously in a different way. And that's the most effective way. So what we're saying is the best way to affect Esav is to send the body and keep the passion fully focused. And then Esav says, wow, it's not what I would have thought of, but I hear that. And in our personal life, when you're in the airport, when you're with your friends, and you don't come across as fanatic, but fully 100% uncompromising, connected. And connected means that you're fully engaging because you're on a mission. Because everything about my life, even searching for a job, is because that's what Hashem wants me to do. Even woodwork, it's because that's what Hashem wants me to do. And that's what I'm doing right now. When I think of it in those terms, when I work it in that way, it comes across that way. And therefore it's the most effective. And it's the safest way because it's the least chance of becoming influenced rather than influencing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. It should be a blessed week.
How are you? How was your week?
It's getting a little bit busy. We just say Hanukkah's coming, but we're holding on tight. At least we're trying to. Very good. You were telling me you were going to get involved with sharing lights.
Yes. I just spoke to the local rabbi yesterday, and I think there is a lady organizing the delivery of all the Hanukkiyot. So she will contact me once they arrive, and then there are about 50 of them to deliver. But I think
make it 100. Don't limit yourself at 50.
Yes.
Good going.
Yes, I think I also need to get some candles for mine. So I have one of the Chabad ones. Yes.
But don't forget,
so
next Thursday, a week on Thursday. Careful what I'm saying here. Yeah, I said it right wrong. All right, everybody, be well. Danke, people. Have a blessed week.
Bye-bye.
Chazak u'baruch.
How are you?
All right. How was you?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, good time.
Good. I got here when I could.
Right.
It was all a rush this morning. Where shall I walk out?
Hang it on the back of that door.
Right, well, I can't hang it up anywhere for a minute because I need to just do my hands first. So I'll just pop it on the chair.
Right. My chair's just finished now. We've just been having Sunday morning lesson.
Yeah, new chair and then I'll have to get up. It's such a miserable day today, I've got to say. I got up, breakfast, and put casserole in the oven, washing in.
Yeah, well, I've been up quite early.
Gosh, you can see everything.
Right. The very big tree that was here, that was cut down. Massive thing. 1 or 2 trees have fallen down.
Squirrel, you can see much more, can't you?
Yeah. Don't forget there's no leaves. They're all gone.
Yeah, because it's winter. No,
Yeah.
you can
Is it
see
still
things.
raining a bit? Is it drizzly?
Hardly, but it's so irritating, isn't it?
Yeah.
I haven't got a jacket.